Making the transition from student films to larger budget films is hard. There's no easy way to go from scoring films for free to making enough money to pay some of your bills each month, or even sustaining yourself full time. A lot of the traditional advice comes down to just keeping at it, keep networking. And though that is good advice, it can feel a little exhausting when it feels like you are just repeating the same thing over and over again and barely moving the needle. And though there's no singular path we can go to get from point A to point B, we can take some ideas from books like So Good They Can't Ignore You or Joe Polizzi's podcast, Content Inc. And we can kind of look at ways from a content perspective to create bigger and better opportunities for ourselves. Understanding career capital. Cal Newport's main thesis is the best way to find happiness at your job is to become really good at what you do. He proposes this idea of career capital and how it opens all sorts of doors for you. And the better you are at what you do and working on projects that build your career capital, you can find yourself in positions that aren't open to you when you're just starting out in a new industry or niche. Career capital is a combination of skills, reputation, and proof that you can deliver at a professional level. It's what makes people trust you with bigger and better opportunities. The more career capital you build through experience, credibility, and results, the easier it becomes to land higher budget projects. More opportunities open up, not because of luck, because your reputation starts to precede you. We can't jump to AAA games or massive blockbuster films until we build up to it or earn our keep. Really, career capital is a resume and the reputation around you that says you are ready and you can do this. Career capital can be broken down into three main categories. Creative, which is how good you are at your craft. Social, who trusts and recommends you. And strategic, your online presence, public perception, reputation, etc. Once you understand how to build career capital, the other resource we should look at is Joe Polizzi, who is known as the godfather of content marketing. He has this idea that every quarter you should try to focus on one big tentpole project beyond your normal content. This can be a book release, a live event, or anything on the larger scale that helps you move the needle, and they're one of your best tools for career capital growth. So if we were thinking in terms of a film composer, let's say you just scored your first feature film and it landed an Oscar nomination. That would bring you a ton of career capital and make it far easier for you to land gigs than before this occurred. Now, obviously, not every composer has a chance to get nominated for an Oscar on every project, especially those just starting out or trying to make it. But oftentimes, there are many things we can do to build our legitimacy as composers and give clients a better sense that we are noteworthy, talented, and can be trusted. So besides just writing insanely good music, there are a few ways we can sort of hack the system and make ourselves rise above other choices your clients may be considering. At the very beginning of your career, before you have your first gig, there are small things you can do to get career capital. These are the things that make you stand out amongst other first-time or even hobby composers, but these will not be deciding factors in larger gigs. These are pretty much assumed things for you later on. So you can skip this next section if you're already beyond the first-time early stage and go to this time code. Firstly, dress for the job you want, aka look the part. I'm not saying you need to dress up like Beethoven or go around waving your arms like a conductor, humming yourself everywhere. But I am saying it's not enough to just say you are a composer and you want to compose for a film. Having a public website and an actual portfolio will get you far further than a few randomly named tracks in a Google Drive. Not only that, but having a decent camera for Zoom calls and a good-looking physical background can help you too. This sounds kind of stupid, but it adds to your image and it provides legitimacy when you have no other credits to your name. When you're just starting out, anything you can do to add that little extra bit of trust will help you. When I was first starting out, I took all my calls with a really nice DSLR camera in front of a wall of guitars. I eventually moved to my studio and got LED lights and started making my desk glow with umbrella lights in my face lit up perfectly. And I took my calls there in front of my keyboard and large monitors, and I absolutely admit that this is all a presentation thing. But I have multiple clients who mentioned that that was a deciding factor for them as I looked professional and they knew I knew what I was doing. I wasn't answering Zoom calls in my pajamas in my car. I was responding to them in a professional looking environment and caring about the details of the video call. Now, you don't need to go all out and be over the top, but the manner and materials in which you present yourself is important, especially in first impressions. You may have seen the viral reel that's giving advice to college seniors. It says, Check out or rent out one of the classrooms in your building and take a picture of yourself in front of the projectors like you were giving a presentation and use it as your LinkedIn profile. It makes you look and feel important. That's the sort of fake it till you make it attitude you need for this. It's dress for the job you want. It's what you should do if you have time in a real recording studio or otherwise nice musical space, as it does help early on for sure. The other thing you could do is make content around your niche. This is a strategy I employed as well to great results. I'm still doing it. Making content, especially educational content around what you do, adds to your credibility and helps establish that you know what you are talking about and can be trusted. You make enough content, and you might even be considered an expert by some people. But lastly, one of the easiest ways to get career capital early on is to get recommended from a friend. It is one of the best and easiest ways to get gigs, especially early in your career. Having someone in your corner who recommends you adds so much to your legitimacy as a composer, as someone they trust is lending you their reputation to pitch you to someone in need. This is also how I've gotten gigs before. My filmmaker friends and I would always recommend each other at any opportunity we could get, and it really helped both of our careers take off. They'd recommend me for composer. I'd recommend them for their work on set. It was just a win-win relationship that benefited us both, and it was phenomenal for both of our growths. If you can make these sort of relationships, I highly recommend it. And the best way to start making them? Start recommending people any chance you can. People that you trust and know can do the job, of course. Your reputation is being borrowed. They may love the favor and send it back your way. You never know. And that is so great. So just recommend people whenever you get the opportunity to. If you're interested in more information on how to get your first gig, I do have a great YouTube video on this topic, as well as a free 7-day email program that takes you step by step through the process of landing your first gig, from designing your portfolio to how to send cold emails and so much more. The link for that is in the description. Please check it out. Anyway, so when you're making the jump from your early career to your mid-career and you start landing larger and larger gigs, if you already have a few gigs under your belt, but you want to start getting larger ones, small changes like a better video background aren't going to help you as much. Your credits and work history are far more important than what your video looks like on a call, though I would never entirely count that out. So how do we build our career capital once we started our careers and we want to take on larger gigs? So before we continue, I want to very clearly state that none of this is a substitute for being a better composer and improving as much as you can. Being a composer is the creative side of career capital. However, there are things we can do socially and strategically to help your career grow little by little over time. Career capital essentially boils down to, why is this person worth my time? So like before, the obvious thing to do is to list your credits on your website, especially make note if things got into festivals or won any awards. This is fantastic for credentials because bigger festivals equals more capital, even if the music is exactly the same between them. One project that got into a bigger festival that used the same music as another project that didn't get into any, suddenly that project now has more capital for you. The bigger the festival, the more capital you are getting from it. So take advantage of these things. Don't be afraid to brag about yourself and the accomplishments you've gotten. I had a film that got into Sitges last year, and being able to mention that I got a horror film into the oldest and largest horror festival, and also being able to mention that it was Oscar qualifying, certainly opened conversations for me. Take advantage of these little wins. If it's something that you're proud of, you can definitely use it to grow your career. And if you have multiple projects with the same director, that also looks amazing for your website, as it shows you have an ongoing relationship with someone who keeps coming back to you. This builds a decent amount of trust with new clients, almost like a testimonial, but factually able to be proven. Likewise, sometimes I'll even mention that I worked for XYZ composer on the music teams for so-and-so and so-and-so streaming services. Association is a very powerful tool, and it can be something that sticks out to the client. Again, at least in the early stages of your career. If you have a project or team you are part of that is recognized, take advantage of it. What's really awesome about hosting my podcast, Coffee with Composers, is I get to meet so many awesome composers and chat with them. And then I get the added bonus of association when people open my Instagram and they say, "Oh my God, you talked to the composer that did that movie?" And I'm like, yeah. And it opens the conversation when we're having our interview and they think, oh, Joe Chris, he talked to this composer from this A24 film. He must be on that level. Now, it's a little more complicated than that. But the association is a very powerful tool. One last note about credits. The first one is always the hardest to get because you lack the capital. Same thing happens when it comes to features. However, one feature on your website is worth far more than one short. I've taken pay cuts on features just to have them on my credit list rather than being flooded by shorts. This is true outside of the composing niche too. Many filmmakers will say the same thing. A feature is worth far more to their reputation than a short. And I think that's very emblematic of what I'm trying to get across with all of this. So you're probably realizing by now that career capital is something like a resume that you can earn. And there are ways to build a resume that aren't just about your overall work history. This is why I highly recommend having a social media presence. A paper trail of your work, especially if you build a following over time, is a great way to demonstrate that what you have is valuable and high quality enough that other people are interested in it. The right kind of content will also help establish you as an expert in your niche, and appearing as an expert also adds a ton of career capital. This falls into the category of social proof, which surprisingly is also a very effective tool. You don't need to be a full-time content creator, but being somewhat active builds your reputation as well as being a phenomenal marketing tool. Plus, people get a feel for who you are and your personality before they get to know you, which I think is a major plus in terms of trust and brand building. In addition, if you're doing any musical experiments, doing new things, or just sharing your music, that you can start to be seen as a thought leader or an expert. And some people may even come to you for work directly. When I was at Berkeley, my professor, Michael Sweet, would talk about these ideas and say things like how good it would be for a student to contribute an article to a website like Gama Sutra. It builds your reputation. It gets your name searchable online away from your website, and it adds to your credibility as a composer. All things that are phenomenal for career capital. Like film festivals, bigger content is better for your career capital. If you were to talk about music in what would be a social media equivalent of the Oscars, like I guess a Mr. Beast video, that'd be far better than having the same post on a website like my website or gamedeveloper.com. So getting on other people's podcasts, YouTube videos, doing speaking engagements or webinars, or doing anything that really sets you up to be perceived as someone who generally people want to hear from, builds your credibility far beyond just your credits on your website. If you're looking for content ideas, the best thing you can do is to try and help the person who is just a single step below you. Share what you're going through actively and how you've been conquering it. This has kind of been my strategy for a while, and I believe it's very helpful. Hint, this video is me doing just that. So make of that what you will. Anyway, let's circle back to the beginning of this post. At the very beginning, I mentioned Joe Polizzi's idea of tentpole projects. These are larger projects than your standard weekly music track or whatever your routine is. These sort of things are designed to get attention to you and build career capital. It can be anything from hosting an event to publishing a book or so much more. The idea of a tentpole project is to try and do something quarterly that exposes you to a whole new audience. The best way to achieve that is by creative partnerships with people outside of your niche. This is what collaborating on new projects is great for, but I'm going to suggest doing a passion project each quarter when possible. Your goal is to use these projects to break beyond just steady growth. So perhaps in the first quarter of the year, you write a piece for a new ensemble. In quarter 2, you release a book about film scoring aimed at film students rather than composers. Quarter 3, you host a live film and music screening. Quarter 4, you release an original musical audio drama. All of these are super achievable and can introduce you to new people outside of your niche, while also expanding your level of perceived expertise, creative ability, work experience, and so much more. So remember, you are an artist first and a film composer second. The art precedes the business. The best way to be better as an artist is to make cool art you want to make. Career capital isn't about luck or connections. It's about steadily building proof that you're worth trusting. Every project, relationship, and piece of content adds a little more to your reputation until one day the work starts coming to you. Keep showing up, keep improving, and keep building your capital.